Hey, welcome everyone. This is Shane Grove, your host of the From the Shadows podcast. And with me today, as always, is the super producer, Jason.
Greetings, everyone.
And sitting across from me in a very nice, that's kind of a cool heavy metal shirt.
That
kind
is,
of double on top, is the bearded wonder himself, the barrister.
Hey, everybody. Excited to be once again back on the show.
So, you know, the bad thing is you guys' beard game is really top notch.
It is.
You know, Jason, I might as well just go home and shave.
You need to just go
I just
ahead
need to
and
go home and
grow a
shave.
beard.
I'm just going to go home and shave.
No, you need to grow it out.
Total
man.
embarrassment.
Grow it out.
Listen, he still shaves with a hot towel, so he doesn't.
Well, before we get started with this episode, we want to welcome another new member to our Patreon family, Brian. Brian, thanks for becoming a patron, and we're only a couple away, members away from Patreon from like a prize level or something for all the Patreon members.
No doubt.
I don't remember the details. I mean, I'm not very smart, but if we get a couple more people to sign up, I think it's a new sticker for everybody or something.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Reward them.
Yes. And we want to, welcome any new listeners. And if you don't know the deal, if you've got an experience you want to talk about, get a hold of us at, where is it, Barris?
From the Shadows podcast at Gmail.
At Gmail. Or you can go to our website, fromtheshadowspodcast.com. Find us on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook. You can message me personally on Instagram and Facebook. And then check us out on the After the Shadows forum page. That's where everybody gets together and kind of talks about the episodes and put some fun stuff up there. So,
and if I might add.
Oh, another commercial.
No, there is no commercial.
Okay.
I just want to say, if we got any new listeners out there that might catch this episode, you can find us on your favorite podcatcher, and make sure you like and subscribe and share these episodes if you like it.
Yeah, because if you're not listening on your favorite podcatcher right now, something's wrong with you.
Oh, doesn't Jason's voice sound like he'd be one of those game show guys? So what did you win? Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat. Say it.
Well,
he does. He should be on a game show.
So in fact, our guest today is somebody who I found through social media because we're going to be doing some stuff. So this episode's going to air next. Okay, so I'll be in the Outer Banks next week. We'll be doing some cool stuff in the Outer Banks, doing like a couple, ghost tours and doing some, stuff for YouTube. So by the time this episode comes out, there might be some cool stuff on YouTube for our listeners.
Our Patreon.
So we actually, in preparation for that, we kind of threw it out there on this Outer Banks Facebook page, like, has anybody had any experiences? And our guest is probably now regretting raising his hand and volunteering, but I'm glad he did because he's got some great ghost stories he's going to share with us. So, Chris from New Jersey, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be on it. Thank you for having me.
Well, we'll ask you about the whole pleasure part when you're done.
Easy.
So Chris, you want to kind of give us a little bit of backstory of how you got into the paranormal stuff that the investigation side of stuff that you're doing?
Well, yeah, it's I guess, to be very honest, it's really started when I was a lot younger, and I've always been intrigued. It was always something about it that really drew me to the actual situation. And, I probably could remember as early as 5. And I was actually talking to my mom the other day, and she remembered this story. I was at my cousin's house, and we were playing hide and seek, and it was a small house, and there was only 4 people in the house. And, if you imagine walking in the front door, you look up, and there's the stairs that lead to the actual bedrooms, and the first floor is a normal living situation. And, we were playing hide and seek, and I went upstairs, and I looked into one bedroom, and I looked in the other bedroom, and I stood in the hallway. I could hear my mom and my mom's cousin talking, and I heard in this deep, guttural male voice, "Chris." And I looked to my right in the bedroom that I was just at, and there was nobody there. And my cousin was a female, and she was standing at the bottom of the stairs. And I ran down those stairs, and I told my mom, she's, "Oh, you're just being ornery." I wasn't being ornery. I knew what I heard. So I think that's what really started it going as a kid. And a lot of the experiences I've had so far, have not been malevolent, but just really, great experiences, whether it be from, my parents' house growing up, or, my fraternity house, or even the house that we were renting while we're building our new house. And of course, the biggest experience, the most eye-opening experience being Gettysburg and Pennhurst Psychiatric Facility in Pennsylvania.
Wow. So as a kid, and I think this we throw that out there to a lot of people, and I don't know why that is, but for some reason adults are so easily dismissive of children.
I agree.
And sometimes adults, we're so busy with our everyday lives and the problems of our everyday lives, we don't listen like kids listen. Mm-hmm. And we're just so easy to dismiss things that they say they hear and things that they see. I really, and I've told my story on here before with my daughter with something. And so as a cautionary tale, parents out there, if your kids say they heard something or they saw something, take it seriously. Just do. Maybe,
well, I think what aggravates parents is kids don't listen to what you want them to hear, and then they come and say, "Hey, I heard this is ghost."
So let me ask you this, Chris. So you hear this male's voice, okay, and you're just a young kid. What did you think it was?
I at first I thought it was my cousin messing around, but when it was like guttural, it was like it just. I remember, and I'm getting chills here thinking about it. It was like yes, and I looked to my right because I knew it came from that right bedroom that I was just in. And then when I turned back down to look down the stairs, she was standing at the bottom of the stairs, but it definitely was not her. And like she almost like come around the corner from the kitchen, and it was definitely upstairs. It was definitely off to my right-hand side. And again, it scared me to the point where I ran downstairs. But to this day, I mean, I'm 50 years old. That's 45 years later. It's still imprinted in my mind like it happened yesterday.
Did you ever hear that voice again?
I never heard that voice again per se, but I've heard inflections on different recordings that I didn't hear through EVPs. But it definitely was not that. I don't think it was that entity or whatever it could have been. No, I've never heard that per se again since that day. And like going back to what I think it was the barrister said, or maybe Josh, kids don't lie. If you like when my daughter had a situation at the house, we were building our house that we're in now, and we were staying at a beach house. And you know how kids are, they get up in the middle of the night and have to run in to go to the bathroom. Well, this one night she said she didn't do it, but when she came out of the bathroom, she looked down the hall and there was she said it was a white orb. And she said she sprinted into her bedroom, and the orb followed her up the stairs, and she hid under the covers. She put the covers over her head, stayed there all night, and she was like, "Daddy, I was just trying to be a big girl." I'm like, "Oh, I wish you had told me, because I really would have loved to have seen that," because we had more experiences in that house. And like I said, kids don't lie. And like I agree. Like if this, your son or daughter or relative says something, just listen to them, because it might be more intriguing and interesting. You think?
Well, I think there's a greater likelihood that adults would create or fabricate a story for attention when it comes to the paranormal. I mean, your child might come home from school and say, "Well, I was on the bus and so picked on me," but kids aren't going to run to you and say that they heard this man's voice and a guttural thing. I mean, that's just not their brains don't work that way.
Like I said, that was 45 years ago, and I can still picture it today.
Now, did anything else happen in that house then as you were growing up?
No, I mean, it was my mom's cousin, so we, she would just go over there and visit. I guess I was just there with her that day, so I don't remember anything more about going to that house. But that was one of my first experiences. And then I guess with growing up in my parents' house, I know I said to Shane we had a situation. When we were all kids, back in the day, there were no babysitters. If you were older, you would watch your younger sibling. And, my parents were like, "Hey, we're going to go out to the dinner dance, at the local church. And, you're going to watch your brother." I'm like, "Okay." I was 12. He was 6. what do 12 and 6-year-olds do? They mess around. We were playing floor hockey, like trying not to get in trouble. Our house is pretty old. I look back, is before the 1900s it was built. And, we're sitting there and we're playing. And of course, a fake fight comes up and he's on top of me. We're fake fighting. And we had these French doors that opened up into a dining room. And I was on the ground on my hands and knees. And I looked up. And there it was, as plain as day, was our dog that had passed away maybe 2 or 3 years prior to. And I saw her. It was as plain as day. And I stopped and he stopped. And I said, Mike, do you see what I see? He was like, Chris, is that Trixie? And that was our dog. So right then and there, and as soon as we both saw it, it just disappeared as quick as it appeared. And we sat down against the couch and we turned the TV on. My parents came home and they're like, what did you guys break? And I'm like, nothing. And we told them and didn't believe us. Again, the old school mom, oh, you're just being ornery. But my brother, we just talked about it over Easter. We were like, remember that? He was like, yeah, she was there as plain as day. And my mom will dismiss it, but we saw it. So again, there's another corroborating, story about not only myself, but my brother seeing, Trixie, our dog that had passed away. So I guess it's been happening all my life. So it's an interesting set of scenarios.
So in terms of your experiences with being able to see the paranormal, it's not just basically contained to one geographical area. Well, I grew up in this one house. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people, and I'd be interested, if you took a survey of 1,000 people and it was anonymous where they knew nobody would know their names. You said, do you believe growing up you lived in a haunted house? How many people would say yes? I bet you would be shocked at how many people would say yes.
I'd have to totally agree with that. And I think because a lot of people, when we talked about this, a lot of people are afraid to being looked at as being odd or weird because they're going through these experiences. And I think with that being said, I think a lot more people actually experience it if you don't understand it, or they're afraid to say what they're actually have seen or experiencing.
Well, there's something about experiencing an event like you did as a kid. Mm-hmm. And then the rational mind takes over and will give you 100 reasons why you didn't hear what you thought you heard, or you didn't see what you thought you heard, and what you really heard or what you really saw. And then that comforts the mind into saying, nah, that didn't really happen.
Yeah, because if your brother would have said, I don't see anything, then the rest of the night you'd have been like, did I really see that? Or did I?
It's self-doubt. Well, it's self-doubt, and the other thing is it's shaming people. We talk about this all the time on here, is that people are scared to tell their stories, and because I watch Travel Channel, Terror in the Woods, Monsters and Mysteries, and I don't know how many guests say, I never told anybody because, and it's always the same thing. I didn't want to be made fun of. I didn't want to be called a liar, hoax, or whatever it is.
Well, even in that same house, before I got married, you move home, save a little money, put some money away for the house. And I think I reached out to Shane and said, I've also got this other story. I was laying in bed. You could say it was sleep paralysis, but I said to him at the end in the text conversation, but it wasn't, because I think this is the reason. So I wake up and I know I'm awake. And the whole theory between sleep paralysis is you're awake, your body just can't move, you're in that state of consciousness. But I couldn't move. And I looked in the corner of my room and I just saw this dark figure coming towards me. It was a big dark figure. And as it moved closer to me, I just felt like I tried screaming out. Of course, who do you scream to? You scream to your mom. And I could barely get it out. I was like, Mom, I couldn't get it out. I was trying to scream. I couldn't get out. So classic sleep paralysis. But as it got closer to me, I felt it like on me, this like oppressive pressure on my chest. And I kept trying to say, so what do I do? How do I get out of this one? Now, again, I'm looking around my room. I see everything. Again, it could be classic sleep paralysis. I start praying, for the big guy, JC, get me out of this. I said my Hail Marys. And as more of that I prayed, this pressure got off of my chest. And finally, I was able to I scream my mom's name. I'm darn near 26, 27. I'm screaming for my mom. And I sit up. I'm like, holy cow, what was that? And I kept my thoughts together. And I'm like, that was the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced. Again, it was still dark out. Go back to bed. And I swear to you on everything, I wake up in the morning, the crucifix on my wall that was next to my bed was on the floor. And I'm getting chills again thinking about it. So I'm like, that had to be something that was malevolent. It had to be.
Yeah.
And I say to this day, I'll never, there's things like stick out in your mind, certain experiences. It was heavy. It was oppressive. It wouldn't allow me to move, but it wasn't until I started, saying those prayers, going to the big guy, it wouldn't release. And then to see that crucifix in the morning on the floor that had been there, I guess, 20, 25 years with the nail still in the plaster and the crucifix on the floor, that was pretty scary.
So Chris, let me ask you a question. We get into this every time we have a Bigfoot guest on, and there's multiple schools of thought about Bigfoot. Okay, what are they? But we don't really get that sort of debate in ghost stories and paranormal. And I've always been fascinated since my dad was the seventh son of a seventh son and had the gift of sight of the third eye or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Some of that got passed down to me. And so I remember as a kid asking my dad, well, what do you think you're seeing? What do you think we're seeing? Are we seeing dead people? And my dad, maybe because he just wanted to not scare me, says, nah, I don't think so. Because I think we're seeing people in another dimensional time, and it's just bleeding through. He would see people in like colonial day clothes walking through our house and stuff like that. And he didn't believe these were ghosts. He thought that it was I don't know if it was a parallel dimension or not, but there was a ripple in time, that time's not a flat, if time's not linear, it doesn't run from beginning to end, that it's a flat circle. And so maybe he just said that because he thought, well, you won't be scared if you think it's just time. But so what do you think? I mean, I'm interested. Somebody who's had as many ghost experiences as you do, are these
Well, there's
dead
a big
people?
difference between him seeing his dead dog.
Yep.
And him seeing a shadow figure.
Right. So what what
that's
is
two
your
different
dog? I mean, I'd love to hear your take on it.
In my personal opinion, I think, and I just talked to my wife about this the other night. I'm like, I think there is, like you said, that interdimensional situation where we almost get caught in a movie loop. And maybe those are things that you really like to do, or you like to be a part of this house, or you like to vacation at this one spot, or I think you get, some people just get caught, and maybe they don't know that they're gone. Maybe they don't know that, their end of days has taken place, and they just don't know. But what I've seen, if we go to, a scenario that I had at my fraternity house, are there beings, are there residual energies that are actually continuing on with their daily life? Are there things that just like to say, hey, we're here, we'd like to let you know? I don't know what the answer is, but I definitely know it's some sort of energy that's left behind.
I think it's all of it. Yeah, I think it's all of it.
Like an imprinting, energy.
Yeah.
It's weird. Again, the only thing malevolent was that one at my parents' house. A couple of things at my fraternity house happened. My buddy called me, hey, I'm going on this date. She's got a girlfriend. Can you come with me? And I'm like, dude, I just got done working. I'm like, I'll come over as soon as I can. Go home to the house. I was the only person in there. Throw a baked potato in the oven, throw my clothes in the dryer, go upstairs, take a shower. I kid you not. I come downstairs. Now, again, I'm the only person in this house. The oven was on, the door was open, the dryer was off, and the door was open. The clothes were still wet. What the hell's going on here? And even moving into that house, I
figured you were going to say the clothes were in the oven and the baked potato was in the dryer. No. Now that would,
that I'm like, okay, then what do I say?
Truly malevolent.
Yes, yes. You're messing with my baked potato, and I can't get clothes to go out on a date. You're messing with me here.
Yeah.
So I said, listen, if you guys are here, that's fine. I said, but you're leaving an oven open with it on. I said, somebody can get hurt. And we had situations where one of the fraternity brothers, had his blood brother, sleep over. The next day they're going to, Six Flags Great Adventure in an amusement park here in New Jersey. And he said to us in the morning, he was like, Rocco, which one of your brothers slept in the room? He was like, nobody slept in our room. It was just us two. He goes, well, I woke up in the morning, or woke up in the middle of the night, and there was somebody sleeping in the corner. I'm like, oh boy. And
Oh my goodness.
Is he eating a baked potato?
yeah, eat a baked potato with my wet clothes on. But I said, I think there might be something else going on here, because even when I started to move in, I just felt like I was being watched to the point where it totally freaked me out. Closed my door, locked it, and left. And we had the one situation. I had a dog. I picked up a dog, and rescued her, and I brought her into the house. No sooner I bring her into the house, she just starts barking, going crazy. And she runs upstairs and she starts barking at this room. We call it the green door room.
They're mad at Trixie.
Yeah, probably. Or Trixie was following me, and
That's
they were
right.
having a little discussion. And she barked at this door. She barked at this door, and finally we brought her back downstairs. And she was always timid and afraid to stay at the house by herself, very anxious. So again, I was out skiing, and I came home, and guys left a note on the table. Listen, there's no water. There was a frozen water pipe that broke. We're over at the other house. I'm like, great. All I want to do is chill out, relax, have a few beers. So I go upstairs, I throw some clothes in the bag, and she follows me. And whenever anybody would come to the house, she'd be super excited. She would sprint down these stairs, and she would bark at them at the door. Well, she sprints out of my room, and she heads down to the first landing and just stands there, frozen. The hair on her back of her neck and all the way down to her tail is raised. And I hear talking. I hear full-out conversations. I hear cabinets opening. I hear dishes moving. I'm getting chills here thinking, because I'm reliving this thing again. I hear people talking, conversations. I'm like, oh, wow. Now, we're like, in the city of Trenton area, so there might be a possible breaking and entering. I go upstairs and I grab a bat quietly, thinking I'm going to go downstairs. I'm like, hey, kid you not. The conversation stopped. There was no more discussions. It was dead silent. She was still on edge. I walked down into the kitchen. The two cabinet doors were open. We had secured a lot of the house. So I felt bad. I was like, I'm getting out of here, because I know I heard what I heard. I'm like, I'm gone. And, unfortunately, I say to my family members and whoever, I felt bad, but I left her in the house that day, and I just took off and got out of there.
Oh, you are a cruel man.
But that's the thing. I heard it, and, the fraternity brother saw it. So I don't know if I'm sensitive to it or, whatever it is, but I'm just a little bit more keen. But I know I heard what I heard, and it was, again, I thought I was going to go downstairs to three people maybe breaking in the house looking for something. But then I checked the whole entire house. The house is secure.
Were you the only were you the only one that experienced stuff out of the fraternity, or were you the only one that admitted to it?
My one buddy, we called them vampire naps. And we would fall asleep during the daylight and wake up at night. So, it was like, we missed that whole twilight area. And my phone rings. And, this is when we had the mobile, not the mobile phones, the cordless phones. We pulled the metal thing out. It was this big old, dialing phone. Mm-hmm. And he was like, Chris, you got to come up.
Secret agent or something?
it was the AT&T plastic $10 special. And he goes, Chris, you got to get upstairs. I'm like, what's going on? And he goes, you got to listen to this. Now, I kind of debunked this one, but it kind of scared the crap out of me. It could have been an animal, but there was a guttural, heavy breathing inside this wall. And I said, Matt, I don't know what it is. I said, I don't want to go in there to see what it is. I don't want it to come out to see us. I said, I think we should leave. And that was the only time he physically heard something upstairs on the third floor. But I had gone back and researched the house. The house had dated back to the late 1800s, and it sat right along the Delaware River. And, through the Trenton Historical Society, they talked about, who passed away in that house. And, so there was definitely, like, again, at that time, they had the viewings and everything right in the house, at that time. So,
they did. They had a special room for that back then.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a big old house, and, those were some, I mean, I did see, the dog, I did see one evening, the hallway light was on again. I was in the room by myself. It was summertime. She starts kind of growling, and I look, and under the doorway, I could see it looked like shadows of feet. And again, I'm thinking, oh, great. Somebody broke into the house. So here we go. And I go to the door, open it up with a bat, nothing there. No sound of people running down the stairs, no sound of people running up the stairs. And I can't explain it.
So that takes me, since we're talking about that issue, what is it? So one time I was talking to a pastor of the church that I was going to, and I asked him just flat out, says, do you believe in ghosts? He says, well, what do you mean by ghost? I said, do you think that somebody could die and their spirit hangs around and, maybe they died tragically or they have unfinished business, the typical movie stuff, And he says, absolutely not. I said, well, why do you say that? And he says, Bible basically debunks ghosts. He says, now, are you asking me if there's evil spirits? The answer is emphatically yes. And this kind of creeped me out a little bit. But he said, the thing about evil spirits is that, they once were angels. And angels are way, way, way more smarter than Homo sapiens, human beings. They've experienced heaven. They know. They have the, time does not exist in heaven. Was his, time doesn't exist. Heaven existed before time. And so therefore these things are eternal. And their ability to fool you into thinking they're a dead relative or a lost friend or maybe a troubled ghost that had tragically died. It's their way of putting you at ease to make you, even though you're a little scared, but to get your guard down.
Say, do they not understand seeing a ghost doesn't put you at ease?
Well, but
even
if nothing happens, but if nothing happens.
Even seeing their dog scared them into behaving the rest of the night. But you can tell me an evil spirit is coming to us as a dog?
Well, but his theory is, it would come to you as your dog because you would trust your dog.
Well, if there's evil spirits, then there's got to be good spirits.
Well, that's the converse. That look, the Bible says there's, the Bible clearly talks about that there's angels and that there's demons and there's, all this kind of stuff. So his whole thing was, look, no, it don't exist. So interestingly, I was listening to Brian Cox, who's the cosmologist, fantastic guy to listen to, by the way, English cosmologist, talks about the beginning of the universe and all that stuff. And Joe Rogan asked him flat out, are ghosts real? And he says, they've done a lot of research on this. They really have. And the answer is no. There's no proof that ghosts. And it's like, well, yeah, but what about all the people that say they've seen things? He goes, well, I'm not saying they didn't see something. I'm just saying that there's no proof that these are people.
That doesn't help at all.
But understand the distinction. Understand the distinction. So, we've talked about rules of thermodynamics. Energy is a constant. Okay, in the universe. At the time of the creation of the universe, everything in the universe was a white hot ball of energy. We call it the singularity. And then we call it the Big Bang, but in reality it was just massive inflation, the thing just to explain. And so at the center of that singularity, there was no matter. There was no actual physical matter. And that's why the entire universe could fit in something the size of a ball. But everything that was in there was energy. And so when that energy was released, okay, it formed stars, and those stars eventually would get so hot that they would form the element of iron, and then the star would collapse on itself and bend space time. And so from the very beginning of the universe itself is pure energy. Okay, that's it. And if you believe in the human soul is energy. It's what it is. It's energy. And so when we die, what happens to that energy? It just, what is the rules of thermodynamics is energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It just takes different forms. So where does our energy go? Does it hang around? Does it move things, knock things off shelves, open doors? And then where does it actually go? You know, and then you'd get into, I mean, not going to get into debate about religion, whether there is a heaven, there's not a heaven, there's a hell, there's not a hell. But an explanation is it's just energy, you know, and once that energy's here, it will always be here. Mm-hmm. It just takes different forms. And
Absolutely.
So you're experiencing things because that energy force is still here and it's just not going anywhere.
Yeah. And the point is we've all experienced stuff when it comes to that. So for somebody to say, oh, there's no such thing as ghosts is ridiculous because you just don't know. You can't put what because what we may think may not even be a plausible explanation. Right. It's just what we.
But we know one thing. We know from a scientific standpoint there is energy. We know that. Yeah. And now whether that is our deceased loved one or some axe murder, whatever, even if it is them, it's still their energy.
Well, and I think the next couple of stories that Chris is going to tell is going to show the difference in what could be evil energy and what could be good energy. Except I just want you to know, Chris, I lived in a huge house going to college with a bunch of roommates, and as soon as you started talking about that, I just thought about how, I mean, you were in that house.
Yeah.
Yes. It was huge. It was like 4 floors, and I just kept thinking of all the stuff that happened in that. In that house, and how you could never know what was going on 3 floors below, and you'd hear all kinds of
Well, I mean, I got 10 hours of my own personal experiences, but just one
from
simple
college.
From all of
that's a whole different podcast.
Oh, geez, yeah, you're right about that.
It's a whole different podcast.
But like for example, like I'm laying in bed one night and I'm watching TV. There's nobody else in the house, and all of a sudden the bedroom door that was open just slammed shut as hard as anybody could possibly slam it. I mean, and there's no windows open. There's no central air on. There's no heat on. It's that time of year. And I dive to the floor because I'm convinced that somebody's in the house. You know, and there is nobody in the house. And you're just like, what could cause that to slam?
Energy.
It's energy. Is it good energy? Is it bad energy? But I think the big thing that we all grapple with is it intelligent energy? I mean, because look, you can unleash energy. I mean, an atomic bomb goes off, and the amount of energy from that is going to wipe everything out. But the question is, but it's not intelligent energy.
Yeah.
Are these residual energies from people that die, are they intelligent?
I think that it goes back to that situation where, you know, even with that, you're talking about door slamming. You know, while we were building this house, we had to rent a house at the beach. And from day one, like I said, with my daughter, she had the experience. I had the experience in our bedroom. And I would lay there and the bed would just shake. And I would tell my wife, who was a nurse, and she was like, oh, you're full of crap. And I said, I'm telling you, it's not all the time, but it does happen. And, you know, and sure enough, right before we moved into the new house, we were laying in bed and just about to fall asleep, and the bed shook. And I was like, oh, here it comes. And she went, what was that? I'm like, that's what I've been trying to tell you. She goes, that was the air conditioning. I'm like, it wasn't the air conditioning. There was no air conditioning on, no heat. We weren't close enough. There would be waves. It was like a little bi-level house. It was the bed shook. And, you know, she's one of the biggest skeptics and, you know, talking about energies. And I think I, you know, said to Shane, you know, she came home crying one night. And she was at the store, and I said, did you get into a car accident? She was like, no. She goes, I saw Joey. I'm like, oh, and okay. So what did he do something or yell at you? And she was like, no. She goes, I'll tell you after the kids go to bed. I'm like, oh boy. So I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, I was in Target, and he came up to me and said, hey, Maria, I'm a medium. And she goes, oh, Joey, you look great. You lost a lot of weight. And he was like, no, Maria, I'm a medium. We never knew this. We were friends with him, but he never disclosed this to us. And the friend group broke up, and he said she was yelling at me in the church to say something to you. And he goes, I didn't think it was the right time. He goes, when we were at the kid's birthday at the bowling alley, same thing. I didn't think it was the right time. But tonight she's like screaming at me, telling me to talk to you. And I said, well, what happened? And it was her mom. Now, he didn't know her mom had passed. And he said, she wants to let you know she's in a better place. Now, this is in the middle of Target, of all places, you know? She's in a better place. She watches over the kids. And tell your father it's okay to get rid of things. Now, here's the kicker. On Easter Sunday, so this is 2 days after Easter Sunday, my father-in-law and my brother-in-law were in the basement going through her stuff, but my father-in-law didn't want to get rid of it. And that's when she started bawling. She's like, I cannot believe that just happened. So that positive energy, I think, is always there. And my daughter had the same situation where she has having a little stomach issue. She was getting to that age, and she called my wife and said, Mom, my stomach's killing me. My wife said, go upstairs. There's a heating pad under my sink. My daughter walks upstairs. The toilet flushes in our bathroom. My daughter proceeds to sprint out of our bedroom, goes downstairs, lays on the couch, and she said, oh my God, this hurts so bad. As she was leaning back, she said she heard an older woman say, don't worry, everything is going to be okay. Same situation when I was 12, I came home. She was like sitting on the couch, terrified. So I think that positive energy is there, just like malevolent energy or evil spirits can be there.
I'll share quickly a story that just happened in my house. My daughter, who she lost her wallet about 2-3 weeks ago. It's got her driver's license, it's got her COVID vaccine card, it's got her bank card in it. And so, you know, we tore the house apart looking for it. I looked in her car, can't find it anywhere. So I'm pretty ticked that she probably lost it. Somebody has her bank card or somebody has her driver's license. I'm pretty ticked. So she gets pulled over for speeding early in the morning, running late for school. Of course, she doesn't have her driver's license. So she comes home, and now I'm mad. So I get into her a little bit. I said, you know what? I ream her out about not having the wallet and how important it is to have your driver's license, your bank card. Because she asked me to go fill her car up with gas because she didn't have her bank card. I'm like, yeah, okay, now it's sitting
So I can
in the pocket.
so I can get to court in front of you about the speeding ticket. Okay.
So anyway, so
Free tank of gas.
So I'm ticked about it, and I finally said, you know what? I said, that car is titled to me. That's my car. You drive it. I said, you're not driving that car until you find that wallet. Done. Well, tears start running down her face, and she's upset. And she walks out the front door, and I watch her walk out the front door. She walks back in, and she says, oh, my God, there it is.
What?
Whoa.
It's laying in the middle of the floor.
Whoa.
Now, so now you're like, okay. So, but here's the thing. My mom just died April 3rd, and she lived with us. And my mom was always babying my daughter. If I tried to raise my voice or scold or discipline my daughter, my mom second guessed me. You take it easy on her. She's just a kid. Well, you never took it easy on me. Trust me. So I literally saw that
big
wall.
middle finger from your mom.
Oh, it was.
Wow.
I looked up and I said, thanks, Mom. and she literally, she's sitting there staring at it, and we're both just staring at it. And like, there is absolutely no rational explanation in the world. There couldn't be. I watched her walk out the door. It wasn't laying there. I turned my head, was messing on my computer. She walks back, opens the door, and the first thing she says is, oh my God, there it is.
That is freaky.
And I turned and looking from my vantage point of where I'm actually sitting. There it is. A purple wallet. It's laying right there in the middle of the floor. Like, now you talk about energy. And so I told my other daughter the story, and she's like, well, how did Grandma find the wallet? I said, there was not a question. My oldest daughter didn't say, do you really think Grandma did that? Or where did Grandma find the wallet?
Right.
Well, how am I supposed to know where Grandma found it? If I'd have known that, I'd have found it 2 weeks ago when I was hoping to look for it. But the point was, somehow that energy had an intelligence and knew where something was and had the ability to not only... it almost simultaneously manifest this wallet from wherever it was. Like, we don't know where it was. For all I knew, it was in some guy's house that had stolen the wallet out of her car.
Now that guy is like,
where'd that wallet
go? Where'd the wallet go?
So this energy has an intelligence. And that's just a
And a
mind-boggling
great
thing.
sense of humor.
Yeah, and I literally thought, Mom, you just stuck that to me, didn't you?
Well, mediums, they report finding things from people, the same way. They say that it was reported to them, and they're supposed to tell you what you were looking at is, all of a sudden in one place, and then you'd be like, well, no, we've looked all over, and then you go over to that closet or whatever it is and check it out, and then the item is right there. I mean,
Maybe
that's
a
another
medium
story
could
like
find
that.
Grover's sense of humor.
There's no
luck.
point. There's no point in it.
Yeah, good luck.
What's wrong with you? Where's that sound?
What's wrong
with you?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's just one of story from my life, and you're just thinking,
So Chris, now you got to
Yeah.
beat that story. So let's.
I can't wait.
Okay.
that's setting up for the Gettysburg story, right?
Let's get to
So-
let's check out the insane asylum. Or
Oh,
Well, a little backstory on that Pennhurst psychiatric facility. My friend Dave Orloff, who's part of the paranormal diagnostic group run out of New Jersey, his friend's father bought the facility, and this is a big complex. It was a home for the mentally disabled and people with afflictions, and I think it started back in the early 20s, during the TV times. And it became overcrowded and overrun. And there was a news reporter who broke the story in I think it was the 80s. His name Bill Baldini. The name of the report was called, or the documentary is called "Suffer the Children." It's on YouTube. And if you look at it, you get a pretty good idea of how deplorable the conditions were. And David told me, "Hey, you got to come out. You got to come out. You got to come out." And with the kid's schedule, I could never really do it. So finally, it was Memorial Day week, Labor Day weekend. He's like, "Oh, you got to come out." I said, "You know what, Dave? My schedule's clear. I'm coming." So we hop in his car and we head out to Pennhurst Psychiatric Facility. And I was I was kind of calm. I wasn't really looking to see or find anything, but I just was interested and intrigued. So we get out of the Jeep and we pull up the first building. It's called the Mayflower Building. It's kind of like the staging area. And his brother-in-law, Tim, was there. And I get out of the car, and I had never met Tim. And I'm walking up, and I hear a conversation, and I look, and Tim looked right at me. He goes, "What?" I'm like, Did you just hear two guys talking?" And he said, "Welcome to Pennhurst." And I was like, oh, boy. And this is about 4:30 in the afternoon. There was nobody on the facility. You had to actually drive, and it's in the middle of nowhere. And, there's a VA hospital, but it's like fields, and there's no one around it. So Dave said, "Listen, I want to show you the building because we have people coming in tonight that have paid to actually, do an investigation or a walkthrough." And I said, he goes, "I want you to take a look and help out." And I said, "Fine." He goes, "Let's go to the third floor." So this is my really first true EVP intelligent, responses. So we go to the third floor. It was the nurse's station. And, it's dilapidated. There's no electricity other than emergency exit electricity. So we go up to the third floor. He's like, "This is the third floor." And, we put the quarter in the K2 meter so it stays on constantly. It was green, 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 green. All of a sudden, boom, goes to red. He goes, "Let's do an EVP session." He said, "Hello, who's here? And do you know where you're at?" And he said, "End session." And "Hello, nothing. Do you know where you're at?" Plain as day. Pennhurst. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. It's alive. It is. It's like.
So let me ask you this question, and I know you're going to tell the story. It's going to scare people. Why the hell did you stay? I mean, if you're convinced there is an intelligent person in an insane asylum,
right?
that is an energy force that you can't fight or get somebody in a white coat and a net to catch them.
Right.
Why are you staying, man?
Well, one, it was daylight still. I was okay.
Well, that makes things a lot better.
Second was the nurse's station. I was hoping she was hot or something, and just telling me
totally
that's a good
understandable.
thing.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
By
Different
the
podcast.
way, I looked that up. That facility is over 600,000 square feet.
That's
Oh, it's
huge.
it's massive.
I got to be honest, it's just a little bit bigger than the beach house he lived in there that he's ridiculously name dropped in our face like 5 times.
I was going to say, I cannot even fathom 600,000 square feet.
I know,
of
and to
building.
find out that it was overcrowded.
It was
You know what I
supposed to
mean?
hold. It was supposed to hold 900 people. I think at the time of its height, it was over 2,000.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it was just horrible conditions. And that's that. Again, I think a lot of that energy that was still there is crazy because there's a girl. Her name was Emily. That's the girl entity or the girl energy. So we went down to the second floor, and we didn't get anything from her. So Dave said, "Hey, let's go into the basement."
Oh.
And he goes in the basement. He goes, like, tracks off into the tunnels, and the tunnels they had so you couldn't see people being carted in and out if they were either sick, dying, or dead.
This is right out of a horror movie, man.
Yes,
Oh,
it is.
Hey, let's go down in the dark tunnels where they used to bring people and they were going to murder where they couldn't see them. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
They actually took everything out of there that would actually show the stuff that may have been pretty bad. They did stuff, and there was a quiet room where they, not tortured, but did experiments, with kids that bit. They pulled their teeth out. It was just a bad situation. So we went down to the basement, and we go down the stairs. And again, my K2 meter is green. Nothing's going on. And we hit the bottom of the floor. As soon as I stepped on the floor with Dave, that K2 meter went from green and just stayed at red. And my ears started ringing. And Dave said, "Let's do a session right now." And he said, "Are you here?" Nothing. No, we didn't hear this at first. He goes, "Are you here? Can you come back? Where did you go?" End session. As soon as we played it back, "Are you here? Where did you go?" "Get out." End session. We looked at each other on that. We heard it on the recorder. We said, "Holy cow, that was incredible." I said, "Dave, was that your recorder that was ringing?" He goes, "No, my ears were ringing too." He goes, "That energy was right up on top of us." And before we came on tonight, I reviewed that audio. And man, let me tell you, it brought me right back to that day because it was so powerful. And he said, "Chris, that's the king." He goes, "The king controls the whole Mayflower building. He controls what happens energy-wise. He's very powerful. And like the other energies are afraid of him. And he resides in that Mayflower building." And I'll tell you what, that night my uncle had passed away. And you talk about being intelligent. I don't know if it was him or somebody else. We had another recorder out of a spirit box. And it said, "Uncle died. Sorry." And it kind of threw me off. I'm like, "Oh man, is this thing messing with me?" And that was my first experience with the king at Mayflower. And this happened at 4:30 in the afternoon. So it wasn't a full moon. It wasn't dark out. But he said, "Chris, we were the first persons in that building, and he did not want us there at all." And, we went outside and we listened. A couple more people had rolled up, and they heard it, and they were like, "Whoa." They were like, "That was strong." And if you guys want, I could send that to you somehow. You'll be blown away.
That would be great.
Yeah.
We can post that.
Yeah. We'll put
Yeah.
that up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it was.
Are there stories? Are there stories about the king of the Mayflower actually physically harming people? Like you hear something about people getting scratched, like at the Mansfield prison, the Mansfield Reformatory, about people who physically get touched and scratched and hit and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, that night, if you go on the paranormal on Facebook, I think it's Paranormal Diagnostic on Facebook. There was a couple from Delaware that came out, and they were having an issue in Delaware where they were having poltergeist activity, and she was a nurse. And there's a infrared video camera pointing down the hallway, and somebody asked a question: is there a nurse here? And I wasn't there with that group at the time. And you could see her sleeve gets pulled. She turns and her hair gets pushed up in the back. She's like, "Oh my God, something just touched me." And you can physically see it. That's the only energy that I've seen there on video. But my friend Dave, there's, the Quaker building, they won't even go into because their feelings it was very demonic. They've had stuff thrown at them. The last time I was there, we did an EVP session in a shower where the person asked, Dr. Evil was the name of the doctor. It was spelled like Efiel. They called him Dr. Evil. And they said, is Dr. Evil here? And the recording came back, Dr. Evil's everywhere. But not like I'm saying, but it was just like, Dr. Evil's everywhere. We're like, whoa. Well,
I mean,
that's some strong negative energy right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, did Dr. Evil die in there, or they're just the energy still there is still
From the oppression,
is still there.
Yeah.
And once again, I mean, are you really talking to? So this is a little heavy for everybody. Are you talking to ghosts? Are you talking to live people because they were mentally ill and they were in tune through a different dimension? That you're actually talking to live people, and they would say that because they are, and maybe what's one of the reasons why they thought they were mentally insane, because they could talk to people.
So you're thinking that while they're there investigating this, there's another dimension that place is still in operation.
Well, there's a theory, and I'm not saying I subscribe to it, but there's a theory that says that people who are schizophrenic are really hearing voices. Those voices are real people from a different dimension. That's not mental illness. So,
well, yeah, if you can not hear a voice that you pick up on a recorder, who's to say that people aren't?
What is our brains?
Yeah, our
brains are computers. They're
basically,
like they're transmitters.
I mean, just because that's the proof. Just there's somebody talking. It got picked. You didn't hear it in real time. It gets picked up on a recorder. Who's to say that somebody's mind isn't
telepathically
wired that way, where you can't hear it, but they can hear it, and it's driving them crazy because nobody else can hear it.
Well, people vibrate at different frequencies. And
that's true too.
Are we talking? Is this okay for the podcast?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is.
I think we need to have.
This is legitimate.
Do I need to light a candle for this?
No, you don't need to do that.
No, but what he's saying. Yeah. But Albert Einstein once said that people like us, he's talking about physicists, who believe in physics know the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Time, in other words, basically he said, is an illusion.
It is.
It's something we've invented. Time is an illusion. And so, probably the greatest physicist of all time says, listen, time's not real. It's an illusion. So
he could be there at the insane asylum at the same time that that there's people there.
And because you were communicating them through this electromagnetic device, and what controls the universe? Gravity.
I was going to say money.
Gravity.
I was going to say money.
Yeah, there you go. but everything in the universe is controlled basically through magnetism, gravity. Okay, and you start talking about, like they say, a spirit box. Well, you think about what the scientific basis of all this stuff is. It's electrical impulses. Okay, our brain, our brain is nothing but electrical impulses. Is what it is.
Absolutely.
So could it be that you're taking an electrical device and you are somehow able, because time is an illusion, you're just actually talking to real people at that point, and because they're in a insane asylum, nobody believes they're hearing voices too.
Yeah,
right.
They think they're nuts.
Yeah, they're like,
and so that's when you say,
guy asking if Doctor.
Well, you think about it. You think about it this way: Dr. Eiffel, EF, did not probably die in that facility. His ghost is not creeping around that facility. But if you were talking to someone through an electrical device and you said, "Is Dr. Eiffel here?"
And
someone who would have been a patient at that time would have said, "He's everywhere."
He's everywhere.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
We even asked them in this one area. It was called Candyland. It was the play area for the kids, and we asked them, what kind of ice cream do you like? And it's plain as day, chocolate. And it came out like plain as day. So
they're clearly crazy then because it's strawberry. They're nuts.
And with the intelligent responses that that leads right into to Gettysburg, with what we experienced on the battlefield on 2 nights, and that was, to me, like my buddy Dave said, you've seen it. Well, at the time I hadn't seen it, but you've heard it, you've been touched, and eventually I did end up seeing it at Gettysburg, and that was pretty much, I think, what turned Shane on to to having me on, and that
there's
was
a lot of things that turns him on. This.
Hi-oh.
Gosh.
Jesus. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, like we had actually gone out to a soccer tournament, and Dave's daughter and my daughter on the same team. He was like, "Hey, we're going to Gettysburg. We gotta go to the battlefield and do an investigation." I'm like, "Heck yeah!" So of course, Friday night rolls around, and there's a massive thunderstorm, clears everybody out. Dave's like, "Let's go." Storm clears out. Everybody that was at the battlefield cleared out, and it was just myself, Dave. This is Friday night. Myself, Dave, and frogs, pretty much, and the park rangers. And the sun had gone down. We went on top of Devil's Den, and we sat on some rocks. And he's probably about 25, 30 yards from me, and I'm on a rock. And, it's like fishing. I'm not getting anything. And he says, "Chris, come on over here. Listen to this." And he said to me, "Listen." And he went, "Soldier, what do you need?" And the EVP responds back, "Water." I'm like, "Whoa, here we go. It's getting crazy. What's the name of your president?" Lincoln. I'm like, wow. And it was just that clear. So we were like, and then we were like, you know what? There's a really good chance with that energy that came through, that electricity that came through, it really energized the whole area. And, I didn't have my recorder on, but I heard, and Dave heard, there was no fireworks. There was no nothing. You could see him in the sky. If you could see him, you could hear percussion of almost like cannon fire. It's like, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, "Dave, do you hear that?" He was like, "Yeah, I hear that." But there was nothing. 360 degrees around. You couldn't see, you see a sky blast or something like that from a firework. You couldn't see anything. So, the park ranger came by and said, "How you guys doing?" He was like, "Listen, we're shutting down." We're like, "Okay." But we had gotten enough of what we needed to. The next night was the night that really turned everything for me. And we went back, and our friends' sons wanted to go with us. And we were like, "Okay, but, there's, a few things you got to, understand. Like, you got to kind of be quiet. You can't talk." And again, it was still daylight. So we were down in the slaughter pen. And the slaughter pen is in between Devil's Den and Little Round Top. It's pretty much the Union had the high ground, and the Confederates had the short end of the stick. And it was like shooting fish in a barrel. So we went into the woods, and there's this big old rock, and Dave's brother-in-law, Tim, was with us. And he actually drove out to see the tournament and met us there. And he said, I'm doing Gettysburg too. So we went over, and we're all standing by this big rock. And he said, "Come on, Johnny, give us a rebel yell." We let it run, played it back. "Come on, Johnny, give us a rebel yell." "Yeah, yeah." We're like, whoa. Now, we didn't hear that with our ears. It was dead silent. So the boys are all intrigued, right? They're like, "Can we take that recorder and go up the hill?" We stayed there, and they went up. They came sprinting back. "Listen to this, listen to this." In the background on that recorder, again, you can't do any battlefield reenactments other than, I think, on the actual day of the battle. We heard no gunfire, we heard no musket fire, but on their recorder, you could hear distinct cracks, almost like musket fire. And we're like, wow, this is good. This is really good. They were really into it. So as the sun started to go down, they went back up and they were doing their thing. And I said, my buddy Dave goes, "Listen, I want to go to Little Round Top." And I'm like, "Not a problem." Well, the boy's mom was also driving them. So I said, "Listen, you go up there, wait for the boys. I'll get in the car. I'll meet you. I'll meet you up there." So now it's dark. And so imagine sitting in a parking lot. The car is about 25 yards away from you with the lights flashing towards you. Your lights are flashing towards that car. So finally, my friend Dave calls one of the boys and said, "Hey, where are you guys?" And I'm looking at the front, and Tim's in the back seat. And I'm like, "Oh, there they are." I'm like, "Oh my God, holy crap." I swear to you, there were 2 Union soldiers in full battle dress, rifles on their shoulders, walking through the headlights. And I'm getting chills as I'm talking about it. 4 or 5 steps. My buddy Tim in the back seat goes, "Oh my God." And as soon as they get through that car light silhouette, they disappeared into the woods, and we didn't see them. Within a minute, 2 minutes later, the boys came up to the right-hand side. I went, holy crow, Tim, did you see that? And I said I'm being nice because it's a podcast. And he was like, I cannot believe we just saw what we saw. It was so distinct. It was so full of mannerism, just walking with rifles on their shoulders, full dress into the woods. And Dave was on the phone. He didn't get to see it. He was so pissed. And,
I bet he was.
He was like, are you kidding me? He goes, I can't believe I missed it. And Tim was like, I can't believe we just saw what we saw. And again, another corroborating witness, because, if one person sees it and there's no, some people might think you're telling a story, but when you have another person seeing it and, I feel like I was blessed. I saw a part of history.
Yes.
I'm like, wow, I just saw something that took place. It was an integral part in our nation's history. And the next day I took my son back, and oddly enough, right where they walked away and disappeared into was a Massachusetts memorial for the Massachusetts Regiment. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That is crazy. That's like, that just goes to show it's got to be such a high concentration of energy on that battlefield. It's unreal.
It is. It really was. And, he just sent me another EVP from a place called the Sachs Covered Bridge. And I was actually listening to that before we came on. If you want, I can send that to you. And he said,
oh, no, we don't want to hear that.
No, okay, I won't send that. He even said, he goes, somewhere to the fact, confirmed, do you wear a blue uniform? And the voice goes, that's correct. Like it was distinct. That's correct. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty good stuff. That's really good stuff.
Yeah.
It's almost like that moment in time is just trapped there, replaying
Right.
over and over. But the fact that they're answering you on EVPs
is amazing.
Because to me, like, and I think we discussed, like, those guys marching through your headlights is probably something that happens every day. Mm-hmm. You would think, just on a loop. But then to think that there's
the question is, okay, so do they know they're dead?
Right.
Or they're not dead. The time is circular, and they're just hearing somebody saying something, and because there's so many people around, they're just answering.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure they don't have an EVP walking around like you
because
are.
There's a battle.
There's a battle
going on. If you're hearing the cannons and the
so something's being relived, or the veils between the worlds is thin.
I want you to think about it this way.
He could have said
cannons are inanimate objects. Mm-hmm. Cannons are inanimate objects. They don't die and they don't have spirits.
But there's energy.
So what I'm saying is, if you are hearing cannon fire, you're not hearing a ghost. You're hearing real, that's why I'm saying there is some sort of ripple in time.
Yeah, but a cannon would require some form of energy to fire. So that in itself is a piece of energy.
Correct.
That's
But so what I'm saying is, I'm lending towards it's not really ghost, because a ghost you might see an apparition like they saw an apparition. An apparition may even answer you, but an apparition can't fire a cannon that's not there. And then you hear the percussions of the guns and the cannons and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
It's too much ambient background you're getting besides the
voice, the disembodied voice.
Yeah. So it's almost like what we're
the true ghost people are like, tell that guy to shut the hell up. You don't know.
Hey, this is a theory. We're
using deductive reasoning, right?
Yes,
we're using deductive reasoning to say that why are you hearing an inanimate object make sounds? Right. Like a cannon or a gun.
So Chris,
yes.
So you're the one that's there and has experienced all this stuff. What do you really like? What do you really think is going on at Gettysburg?
I think it's a lot of tragic trapped energy. I think there was so much sudden death that, like somebody just said, they don't realize they're gone, or they're just trapped in something that they can't get out of, and they need something or some person to actually let them know, hey, maybe you're gone, and they're just stuck. It's like it's like those old record players where it would just keep skipping and it would play. It would
play the same track over and over again.
And then it would get stuck and it would skip and it's just play that same thing. So like you said, it could be like a loop. But even that night, our meters went off on Little Round Top, and Tim took a picture with his full spectrum camera and got a torso in between the boys. The boys' K2 meter was going off. It was a distinct torso, the body and shoulders. And, within 2 or 3 minutes, that whole energy source just disappeared and it got very, very quiet. So who knows what it is, but I just know that, I was lucky enough to see it. Tim saw it. And like I said, there's a cooperating witness, but, there is definitely energy there. And it could have said, who's your president? It could have said Bush, but it said Lincoln.
The interesting thing about how you bring up a record, you think about a 40, you think about the big the album 78. You think about a 78, and how many songs are on that album? Mm-hmm. They're all playing at the same time, technically, until you put the needle in a specific spot. They all exist at the same time. They all exist at the same time. It's just, where's the needle? He is the needle, and he's at Gettysburg, and all these other songs are playing at the same time, and he is somehow able to listening to him and interact with those other songs on that album.
But here's the thing: it's not just Chris,
right?
His buddy's sitting in the back.
No, but I'm just saying that's my thing. They all are. That's the thing.
Wow.
You are bringing in people who from this time loop, and they are the needle. And they are somehow tapping into this.
How can we get
that? Just adds to the theory of that time is a relative. It's a relative thing,
right?
It's all we perceive it as if we are the needles in that particular situation, but yet time is going on in multiple dimensions and everything else. What did they say it was potentially like 24 different dimensions, something like that?
I totally believe that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely, because again, what was that dimension that walked through that light source? What dimension was that?
Exactly.
What dimension is it that I'm hearing on an electronic device? A lot of the story behind those electronic devices, those recorders, doctors and lawyers were sending them back because they were hearing these voices on their, when they're doing their dictation. Like, who the hell? That's not my voice.
Right.
And that's, if you try to get your hand on one of these recorders, they're expensive as hell because they don't make them anymore.
Well, and the other thing is that sound is a wave. Sound is a wave. And how do we, how does a radio work? You know what I mean? How is it that we are talking? How is it that we're talking in this room and somebody is going to be able to hear it in a different part of the world?
They can tune in to that frequency.
That, and so that is that, and that's all about electricity, and electricity is energy and all that stuff. The transfer of energy. I mean, the first ability to communicate was Morse code over. Well, I guess technically smoke signals from Native Americans, but that also is energy. You think about it, wood burning and creating smoke is a transfer of energy.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then you create something like the telegraph, and it's the same thing. You're sending electrical impulses through.
Well, one of the theories that the guys had about Pennhurst was that they're probably about 15 to 20 miles away from a nuclear power plant. And if that's and a water source, so if that energy there is able to actually draw from it, in theory, that which can make it so active. The crazy thing about the end story for Pennhurst is that they want to end up knocking it down and building condos on it. We all say it's going to be a modern day poltergeist movie.
Yep. God. I really think they need to leave it alone, let the Historical Society keep that building, and then use it as a source for research.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's what it originally was purchased to do, but the Historical Society stepped in. Now we can't ever go back because our friend's father sold it. So we'd have to actually be paying members to go there to do any more research. But there's definitely, like you said, that residual energy, whether it be from the energy at a battlefield or the energy from an electrical storm or the energy for anything that's passed through, it's conductivity. And it's amazing.
Did any of you guys ever see, I thought it was a really good movie from the 80s called Prince of Darkness, starring Donald Pleasance.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that. It was a good
movie. It was a good movie. It was the guy from
Halloween.
Halloween, yeah.
And then, but anyways, the premise of the movie was that they were all doing this research at this church where they thought that the devil had been contained in this fluid, but what was happening? They were all having this same dream, and they couldn't figure out why they were having the same dream. And what they ended up deduced, because they had this physicist there, was a quantum physicist, is that it was the future was communicating to them, back to them, into the past, through their dreams, through energy, through transfers of energy. So, yeah, I mean, this theory has been around not only in theater but in practical science for years. It'd be interesting if someone took a real scientific approach to the paranormal and said, we want to see if what we're really dealing with is not dead people, but they would be dead technically. But we're
Dude,
talking about
can you imagine if there was proof that Gettysburg is still going on right now, every day, in some form or fashion?
Right.
You couldn't wrap your mind around it.
Well, I think that would be the case with any major world conflict that we've had.
I couldn't imagine if, like, what I did yesterday is still going on every day, every day. Okay? Because it wasn't a very good day on the mail route, and I can't imagine reliving that every day. But what I'm saying is just anything, just anything going on, anything that's happened, still continuing on as it happened. How could you wrap your mind around that?
But even if you think about it, if you think about when you're growing up, everybody's got their favorite memories, like whether it was, if you could relive that again, like, do you go back, when you pass, do you go to that other dimension? Do you relive those things that you like to do and like love to do? Or do you get stuck to the place that you were, destined not to be and get stuck there? And unfortunately have to relive that.
When I was a kid, when I was in elementary school, it doesn't happen now, but when I was in elementary school, I would have a dream about being on the playground and playing in a kickball game, and I would and then I would get to school, and everybody in the dream was wearing the exact same clothes they were in the dream, and things would play out.
Dude,
in the
that's
kickball
because
game.
when we were in elementary school, we only had like 4 outfits. What are you talking about? There was a good chance we were going to
it would play out. So you'd have a dream, and you would get there. And
I just want to know, in those kickball dreams, were you much better at kickball than you were in real life when you were at recess?
Well, I guess you'd have to evaluate how good of a kickball player I really was.
Well, I remember your kickball prowess.
Were you a good player, or were you just the water boy?
First of all, it's recess. There's no water boys.
Oh, that's right.
Can you tell by the tone? That he's taking a little bit fast?
Just a little bit.
He was much better in his dreams at kickball.
Well, even though with the dreams, even though you go back even with deja vu, one of the theories of deja vu is that you could be reliving a past life experience, and
exactly. Yep.
So like those things, can really, play with your mind. But with the dreaming factor, I will say this, going back to Pennhurst, after you visit Pennhurst, I know for a good 7 days, a good week, the lucid dreams that I had were like to the point where I'd wake up at night. It was really like very lucid, very real, disconcerting dreams. So I don't know, like we did a cleansing before and after, but it was always just like really, really lucid, hectic dreams, like not normal dreams. Kind of concerning, like, being chased and being, physically assaulted, and then it would just dissipate over a week or so.
Wow.
But, so I haven't been out on any investigations in a while just because the schedule's so tight, but I know David going back out to the Gettysburg, and I know he's had a few situations where he's had people call him to do an investigation. I had a woman that I work with that said her sister has a house, and I said, listen, we'd be willing to come out and, take a look at it. And she said to me point blank, my sister knows what's in the house. She wants nothing to do with it, and she just doesn't want to bring any more attention because that's how crazy her house is with whatever's going on. I'm like, okay, no problem. I'm not going to dive into it anymore. It's like, I totally get it.
Wow. So somebody who has seen stuff since they were 5, you seem pretty at ease knowing that you're kind of open, you're receptive to this.
I think to a point, because it's been so benign. It hasn't been, I think, my biggest fear, if you want to call it a fear, is to do anything other, like, that scared the crap out of me with that black figure. And to me, that was demonic or evil. And I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. I don't think I'd want to go out to a place that really had that, because I had an opportunity to join a group, and I talked to the woman, and she said, I said, I've got 2 young kids, and she said, well, to be honest with you, we've had a situation or two where things have come back with the people doing investigations. And I'm like, yeah, with the kids being young, I really don't want to have possibility of that happening. So the demonic, the malevolent forces, I think I'd be a little hesitant with, but something that's so inviting, not inviting, something so, just, hey, I'm here, everything is good, I'm just kind of letting you know I'm still here, I'm fine with that. It's the malevolent demonic forces that would put me over the edge. I can't even watch the Conjuring movie. I can't.
Well, I'll throw something out there to you. This is, energy is attracted, I'm reading this from
Is that my Instagram post from today?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
From a physics article. Energy is attracted to energy. The more energy that is collected in one area, the more attraction there is.
Absolutely.
The best example of this is gravity from planetary bodies. Mm-hmm. So if you take your energy into an area that, let's say, AKA haunted, you could have tracked that energy, especially if that is like like an empty prison, an empty thing like that, where it's not inhabited all the time. That energy is attracted to your energy.
Yeah, because there's no energy.
Yeah, there's no energy when there's nobody there.
Right.
You think about it. Well, you think about Pennhurst or whatever. I mean, how many hours of the day is there somebody in that building?
Right.
Now you bring you and your buddy in there. You bring energy. Energy's attracted to energy. Something attaches to your energy. You take it home, attaches to your kids because their energy, and now you're dealing with a nightmare situation.
That's scary. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why, I try to keep it very low key, because again, that's the last thing I'd want, is to bring something back with me. I know my friend Dave has never had that situation, but he has had a situation where he's gone and the entity said his wife's name. And he was like, wow. And, he was like, this, and he's very professional. He doesn't provoke. He doesn't do anything like it. We're just there to, listen, if we can debunk it, we'll debunk it. And we had that happen at Pennhurst. We heard this rustling and this moving. Well, there was a window open, and it was a plastic bag shaking. So it wasn't a spirit. So, am I sensitive? Do I have a little bit of sensitivity? Does my daughter have a little bit of sensitivity? My mom would say it's malarkey, as the old folk would say. But again, I didn't want to bring it up to her today, but I remember as a kid, my wife said back in the day, parents had priests come over to bless the house. I remember as a kid, the priest was at our house 3 times to bless the house.
So maybe.
So I'm like, were they trying to play it low key? And I didn't want to bring it up to her. But I don't know. The question is, I don't know, but I do know what I've experienced. And, if I could allow some other folks to, be comfortable bringing it up to somebody and allowing that platform to elevate what they've seen to make them more comfortable, I think it's important.
I'm going to throw one last thing out there just for you.
Sure.
Chris, just for you. You talk about whether or not you are a magnet for this type of energy. I'm reading this right now. It says, when you charge something that can store energy, it becomes magnetic because of the energy collected within it. So you may have, from being a child, have collected this energy, and now you have become a magnet for the energy of going to the Pennhurst or these different places. Because of your experiences as a kid, your body has collected this energy signature, and now you are now the magnet.
Very possible.
Lucky you.
There
Well,
you go.
Yeah.
here's the thing: is what I like when you can have a guest come on like you, Chris, is the fact that other people may be experiencing things and been toying around with the idea of maybe I should tell somebody, or then again maybe I'm not. I don't want to be known as crazy or whatever. But when you have a platform like ours, a podcast like this, and I think it helps when you have listeners and guests in general to come on and explain about their experiences, because I think that can help a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's true. It's like any other situation. If you go to a doctor or you go to a therapist to talk about things, like, well, are there really people that can talk to you about these things if they don't believe or have an open mind? And I think, having this platform that, you not only share with, the supernatural, but, talk about Bigfoot and the cryptids and UFOs. Yes. I think it's important. And like you said, the information and the reality is out there. There's definitely something there. And I think you guys do a great job with it. And I really do. I do hope that, some other people can feel comfortable talking about things and open, even with their friends.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Well, Chris, before we sign off here, there's one EVP session I do want you to record for us, and that's when you do question your mom about having the house blessed.
I will do that.
I want to hear how that conversation is.
So I'm gonna throw something out there to our listeners. For those of you who have a science background and know and want to pick what I said apart, send us an email, because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
They do after every episode.
I know.
You just don't read them.
Well, no, because
I
can't handle that kind of negative vibe, man. Like Donald Sutherland in Kelly's Heroes said, "I don't know. I can't handle these negative waves, man. I don't want these negative waves." But I'd be interested to hear. Look, if there's people out there that kind of share my idea, or they want to supplement, or they know science a lot better than what I do as a history major, then shoot us an email, or get a hold of Grover, and we'd be interested to chat, or maybe have you on the show if you can break down some physics stuff for us to explain why I'm full of crap or why I could be right.
Or if you just want to add to the conversation,
that'd be cool. Add to the conversation.
Really, he just wants you to confirm that he's right.
No,
I'm just saying.
Whatever.
All right, we really appreciate it, everybody.
Well, Chris, thanks for coming on. I'll shoot you the email so you can send us those EVPs, and we'll put them up on our Patreon page for people to go check out.
That would be outstanding. Yes,
it's been a lot of fun, gentlemen. I really appreciate the opportunity, and congratulations with the success of the podcast and the continued success throughout the years.
And thank you for coming on once again.
Yep,
we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So we'll talk. Hey, we'll talk to you. I'm really waiting on that conversation with your mom. So
I'm sure it'll be a doozy. I'm sure.
All right, we'll talk to you.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
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 Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.